Since the introduction of family law in 1975, it has done nothing but destroy families and the lives of too many Australians. I have a big problem with domestic violence and the lies. I am sick and tired of hearing about another suicide, and I feel for those families that have lost their loved ones because of murders that have happened. It can only change if we actually make it happen. The lawyers have made a field day out of this, ripping the guts out of parents and taking everything from them. At the end of the day, they've got nothing left. They're destroyed. If we want change here, then we deal with the perjury, we deal with the lies, we deal with taking the kids away from innocent parents who are fighting tooth and nail just to spend time with their children.
Authorised by R. Miles for Pauline Hanson's One Nation Brisbane.
Hey guys, welcome to Dad Talk Today. I'm going to say right now that is hands down the best campaign ad I have ever seen in my life. This is what we've been looking for a long time. We had to go to Australia to find it, but it is an honor tonight to be sitting here with Senator Pauline Hanson. Pauline, how you doing?
Oh, look, I'm absolutely fantastic. And it's such a great pleasure to be on your program. Thank you for inviting me, Eric and Melissa. No, it's lovely.
Yes, ma'am. Tell us a little bit about what's going on. We're very familiar with what's going on with family law here in the United States. But for the past couple of months, you have been the most requested person. We have actually a big audience there in Australia saying, hey, our family courts are messed up. Parental alienation's running wild. And they've been telling us about you. So what's going on in Australia?
Well, I don't know if you know my history. I was first elected to Parliament in the lower house. So we have two houses, lower house and the upper house, the Senate. So I was first elected to Parliament in 1996, and I served a term for about 2.5 years, and I lost my seat due to preferences. I was a threat to the major political parties, and they had to get rid of me. So then I was out of Parliament. Of course, in 1997, I formed my own political party, Pauline Hanson's One Nation. So I actually stepped away from that in 2002, and then I was asked to come back as president in 2014. In 2016, in between, I've been trying to get back into Parliament because I felt I had something to offer the Australian people. So in 2016, I then ran for the upper house, which is called the Senate. And that's basically the House of Review. So they have to get it through the lower house, then it has to go through the upper house. Now, at the moment, I control the government needs 3 votes from the crossbench to get the legislation through, and I control 2 of those votes. So I've got a big influence of legislation that happens in Australia. With family law, it's the biggest thing that comes across our office desk. So in 1996, I got involved in it, and people were coming to me. It was a big issue. Nothing's changed. If anything, it's got worse. So hence my push, and my push was to the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, when I was first elected, and since to Scott Morrison, that we need an inquiry into it. We've had plenty in the past, but guess what? Nothing happens. So I pushed for this inquiry into it, joint House inquiry into it. So there's 10 members on it. We've been going for the last 2 years. We handed down recommendations to do with the court system and trying to rein that in, whereas we have now put registrars into the courts to alleviate the pressure off the judges to get decisions made. Contravention of orders would actually take in the court system about 7 to 8 months before you actually got a court date. Now they've brought that down to within 2 weeks, you should have a court date for a contravention of order. We've increased the number of judges by about 5, registrars by about 37, 38. Streamlining, because I took a program to the government years ago, and it's called the Lighthouse Project, means that people fill in on the internet their circumstances to do with domestic violence, so then they have an understanding how to process with that. So if people are in fear or real problems, they know who to deal with basically immediately, so they don't have the long wait. So that was something that I introduced to the Parliament, which they've, to the bureaucrats, I should say, and the Minister, which they've taken up. So family law And just a bit of background, I've had 2 marriages. I haven't been married since 87, but rearing, basically, I've got 4 children. My youngest one is 37, 38, but has seen 2 of my sons also go through domestic, always rubbish about domestic violence, but not that about family breakdown. And I'm passionate about it, and I'm passionate with the fact is I feel for the children, I feel for parents, and I'm sick of these feminists who are trying to take over the whole thing and who are actually driving their own agenda. I'm sick and tired of hearing about men are the only perpetrators and they're denied the right to see their children. So this is my aim. They've tried to get rid of me off the committee as deputy chair, and I've told them all where to go, and I won't talk any rubbish.
I have so many questions for you, but you said that it sounds like you're making progress, but you said that that the family law issues are some of the biggest issues that come across your desks, and that's the same thing here. But we're having a heck of a time making progress. We have the lawyers, of course, who oppose most of these bills. You have the feminists and the domestic violence lobbies. What are some of the opposition that you face over there in Australia?
It's the same thing. You have the domestic violence organisations, they're getting millions of dollars in funding for it. You've got these refugees that I can see that a woman needs to be protected if they don't have a house to actually go to with the kids, a safe place to go. I get it, no problems. But you've got to offer the same to a man. You can't just look after women. Both the parents both need that assistance. They need help. That's something I've pushed in the inquiry is equality. Every time I raised, oh, well, what about the men? What about the men? Well, didn't they come down on me like a ton of bricks? But anyway, that's their problem, not mine. And it's about my job is for all Australians to be treated equally and fairly. And these feminist groups or organisations, all they're doing is covering their own backsides, wanting more money, more funding, so their job security for them, without really dealing with the real issue. And instead of band-aiding all the time, let's get to the guts of it, what the problem is, so that we are fixing it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I know you want to ask her about the feminists, Melissa, because that is a very big problem here with the feminists. So, and they drive a lot of this. They really are. And it's very connected to the politics.
They do. And, I'm a family law attorney. I'm probably one of these most vocal family law attorneys in terms of criticism of other attorneys, criticism of the family law profession, of the laws, of even the judges sometimes. But one of the biggest things that I face is opposition from other women. And the women, they seem to be more vile, more violent, more anything, than the men. So do you find that as well? Do you get more attacks from women than you do men?
I'd say so, yes, because we're heading down this path, and they keep crying out, oh, well, we want equality and we should be pushing more women into positions and, we've been suppressed and we've actually been controlled and all the rest of it. What a load of rubbish. Okay, I'm the one political party that I do not have an agenda of you've got to have so many women that stands as candidates or be members of parliament. It's all based on merit. Everything should be based on merit. And I said to this group they have these females that come to parliament and meet with them and they're pushing this agenda, women power and all that. Great. But I said to them, well, what do I tell my 3 sons? Do I tell them, oh, don't bother going to university, don't trouble getting a trade because you won't get a job because it's priority for women? That's not the way to go with our country. It's the suppression that I see all the time, and even kids being told to stand up in school who are white males to stand up and say, apologise for being oppressors and to apologise for being male. And we've got to stop this agenda. It's not helping our society whatsoever to bind us as men and women, and that's what we are. We are men and women, but we both play a part in the role of those children's lives. And, we've got to get back to, and it really annoys me when they say, oh, well, we've got to make laws and we've got to look after what's in the best interests of the child. The best interest of the child is not separating them from their parents based on lies that are given, based on an agenda, because if they actually have the child more, they're going to get more in child support. And that's the next thing that we're dealing with at the moment is to bring down recommendations for child support. And working on at the moment, and they brought down some recommendations that the committee has, and I thought what a load of rubbish that is, which is just fixing up administration, a few things here and there, whereas I put in my dissenting report where I've got real answers how to solve it, make changes, and they don't like it. And they wanted me to go to an inquiry so they can investigate it. And I said, no, you're not. I said, you're not going to put it to an inquiry, let it sit on a shelf and nothing happens. I said, it's not going to happen. So they don't know how to deal with me because I'm deputy chair. And I said, I'm sorry, too many Australians are waiting for us to make some real change to this so it will make changes to their lives. So I'm pushing through with this. And I'd go above their heads anyway. I go directly to the Attorney General.
That's amazing. I think that's what you need to do. Who are your biggest advocates and your biggest supporters? Because it seems like, and just like over here, the feminists are just constantly, so hypocritical. They say, no, we need more women in leadership. And so then you are a woman in leadership, but then you're attacked because you don't think like they do. So to get past that obvious hypocrisy, but who are your supporters and who's really standing behind you helping to facilitate family law reform in Australia?
Mums and dads and grandmas and granddads. That's who they are. These are the people that are affected by it, and they see what I'm trying to do, and they're the ones. And I keep trying to tell people, you are the voice. I'm only the engine. I'm only trying to deliver. I'm the messenger. But if people really want change, they have to actually speak up and say they've had enough. They need to contact the members of parliament. They must say to them, if you don't drive this, then we will not vote for you. There are so many people out there. So it's everyone out there, if you feel you haven't got a voice, you do have a voice. You can make a change. You've been suppressed. You've been made to think that you haven't got a voice. And that's wrong. You do have it, because every politician out there is scared of losing their seat. They're, who they are. Look at me. I'm a politician. Put themselves up on this platform. With me, my attitude to it is that I tell the people they know what they've got with me. I don't beat around the bush. I don't lie to them. And if they know where they stand with me, they know I fight for their rights. I love my country. I have the utmost respect for the Australian people. They need a fair go. And if people don't like what they've got, fine, don't vote for me. I'll go down with my life. It's not the be-all, end-all to me, but I feel I've got a lot to offer yet to the Australian people, not just in family law, but a lot of other issues, because we need that honesty, integrity, and get rid of corruption out of our politics. And people, we're the servants of the people. It's not the other way around.
That's right. Pauline, I saw you talking about perjury inside of your campaign ad. And one of the problems we have here in the States, we very rarely see consequences for perjury. Somebody can make accusations of anything they want to do, which gives them the upper hand. And if you can prove that they're lying, nothing happens. Are we seeing the same thing going on in Australia?
Of course it is. That's what I talk about it all the time. Yeah. And I raise it all the time in the courts, even our submissions, even in the hearings that we heard with people and the perjury that goes on, nothing happens. I think there's only been one case where they've been charged with perjury. The judges can refer it to the police, but they don't. So that is a big problem. And a former judge of the family law courts, after he actually got out of it, made a comment. He said over the 14 years he was on the family law courts, he said the biggest problem was seeing perjury that happened, that the accusations of sexual abuse that was being used to stop the fathers from having contact with the children. They won't accept this. And I spoke to the Deputy Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice of the Australian Family Law Courts, and she actually said, oh, no. She said perjury doesn't happen. It's that people giving evidence truly believe that is the case at the time. That's not true whatsoever. We've heard judges that actually say there is perjury. So what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to talk to the Attorney General, is that we have to bring in, you see, in Australia, we can't sack judges under the Constitution and in federal courts. They've got a job till they're 70 years of age. So you can't sack them. Only the both members of Parliament recommendation to the both members of Parliament to actually get rid of them. There's only ever been a couple that's ever been sacked by the Parliament. So they're political appointments by the political parties. So I'm trying to get an independent board set up so people can make complaints to the board about a judge, their performance, and then if there's enough complaints that are given about that judge, they have to come before the board, explain why, or get their act together and what the expectations of the public are. And if not, then the recommendation from the board to the Parliament, they must go. We've got to start reining these judges, and that's what I'm working on. So one Attorney General said that's doable. So I'm pushing for it, and I've got the support of the Chief Justice.
Oh, absolutely. Accountability for these judges is something that's needed. You know, they have this immunity where they're allowed to act with impunity, essentially. And so when you're talking about judicial accountability, are the judges coming forward and trying to push back, or is everyone pretty accepting of accountability as a good thing?
Look, behind the scenes, there are lawyers and judges who agree totally with what I'm doing, and they know that changes have to happen. They don't like their peers, how they behave, the way they act. A lot of complaints from the public about what these sentences give. You see, because there's been filicide that's happened, and filicide is about children that are murdered by their parents. Okay, so this has been a big issue in domestic violence. So domestic violence is used as a weapon as well here in Australia in the courts. So domestic violence here is a person can go in and say, I'm in fear. That can be domestic violence. If you text your partner a number of times, I want to see my child, I want to see my child, I want to see my child, that's harassment. That can be domestic violence.
Wow.
If you actually say, honey, sorry, why do you buy another pair of shoes? We've got the rent to pay. Domestic violence.
Abusive and control, that's what they say. Yep.
Coercion, okay? So it's controlling. That's all domestic violence, and this is used. What I'm trying to get through to them is, you know, and then we have the extreme where you do have the bashings, you do have the rapes and that type of thing, but they're all in the one basket. So what I'm trying to get common sense is it's got to be in a category. So from texting or that type of thing to stalking to bashings, so that when it comes before the courts, then they know what they're dealing with, instead of saying you see it, because the judges can't read through the whole pages and pages of it and dealing with case after case after case. So if it's put in a category, they know how violent the domestic violence is to compare to a desperate mum or dad who just wants to see their children. And if they have had assault, then you send it to the police and it's dealt with in that area first, and then charge is laid. But domestic violence here, if you lay charge, you can actually have a domestic violence order against you for up to now, they're looking at 5 years in Queensland. That means if you're a blue card dealing as a carer, as a police officer, anything to do in that area, you can lose your job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so wrong. These are things I believe that needs to be changed. These people that lie with perjury, as you raised, Eric, they need to be dealt with, and that's why I want reference, so the judges have to refer it, and they have to be reined in, and they have to be charged with perjury. We have it in our system to allow for it, but they're too gutless to do about it. It's too hard. We shouldn't deal with it, but they don't realise the repercussions they're having on families and not seeing their children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, you can completely ruin someone's life, their reputation, everything, and there's no consequences for that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. We got a question for you here, though, Pauline, from Sean Colmeyer. He said, how many domestic violence shelters do you have in Australia that take men?
Very few. The ones that are set up for women, they don't. And I kept questioning them, and I said, well, where are the ones for the men? And they said, well, they have organisations they go to. A lot of the organisations that are purely set up, I said, well, how many men do you deal with? Oh, we have a few, but most of our funding is for the women. So they admitted it. So I pushed for it, and I've got extra funding, a few $1 million for the men to get them that assistance. But men are basically left on their own. They don't give them the same assistance as what they do to women, and it's so wrong. these men, because of domestic violence, are forced out of their own homes. It might be their home and they had it before they got married. They're the ones that the police tell, sorry, mate, you got to leave. You're out of the house. Or if they end up with kids, they really have to go to families and type of thing. We don't have the same services for men. And this is what I'm trying to change. Look, I'm not anti-women. I've been through it myself. I've been through domestic violence in my own life. So don't think I'm just purely for men. Women do put up with a lot as well on the other side of the coin. But I'm not taking sides here, and I'll stand up for anyone if they have issues or problems and fight for them. At the end of the day, and I say to these people, you've had a life together. You brought a precious little soul into the world. You know, that was your love that's created this child. You got on for a period of time, and then all of a sudden you have this hatred towards each other because you've grown apart, you've gone your separate ways, you've met someone else. So be it. Get over it. Move on. Stop using the children as pawns and denying the other person because you're so vindictive and hateful. And then you might feel that, you want to get even with them because they're not paying your child support. If you sat down and discussed your issues and then came to an agreement, it might be far better for you in the long run, because I tell you what, you got sharks out there, as in lawyers, who would love to see your cases because they keep it going just to feed off you till you've lost everything you've worked hard for. And at the end of the day, the people that you are supposedly fighting for, the children, have nothing, and you're living in poverty. So I tell everyone out there, if you're going through this, just try and communicate, try and get answers to it, and let the other one get on with your lives and say, being there, it was an experience, now I'm going to move on.
You're right. And it seems like there's almost a cultural expectation that when there's a divorce or separation, things are supposed to get contentious. You're supposed to go and hire the most high-powered attorney, and families take sides, and the kids are just pressured. And it seems like really because we live in a divorce culture that we've been indoctrinated, for lack of a better word, that's what happens when you divorce or separate. Things are supposed to be that way. What's the divorce rate in Australia? And do you think that because the divorce rate keeps going up, that people just have this learned response to a divorce or separation?
Well, I haven't got those figures, but I thought it was about 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 actually end up in divorce. So it's quite high. I don't believe that people these days really stick around for the long term. I think they can see the benefits, or they, if they make an inquiry. And this is quite interesting. I actually had this pulled up. There was one case where the father was married before, had children. So anyway, he was getting to the end of paying that child support. The kid's grown up, but to his new marriage, he had 2 children. So anyway, he actually then, his wife, they must have been going through a bit of a rough patch, but a happy marriage, okay, total happy marriage, but just one time. So rang up and spoke to the child support agency who collect child support, and must have said something. Well, they sent her out a letter saying, oh, well, if you leave him, you can actually get $39,000 a year in child support. So anyway, I put this to the Department of Minister, and I've had it stopped, because that is encouraging divorce. A lot of people see this, wow, I can make all this money. And so anyway, I was furious when I was told of this, and that's something that I've had stopped. So, and you've got lawyers out there. So what we've done in our recommendations is that the lawyers cannot charge any more than 10% of the total assets. So if a house is worth $500,000, they can't charge more than $50,000. So you're forcing them to actually get the case heard and over and done with, not drag it on.
That's good. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea, because I know, over here, talking about the incentives, extending the letter and encouraging contention or separation, our government is involved here. I know that there's a lot of states have laws that upon a divorce or separation, child support must go through the state. So the state, by law, injects itself into separations of parties. And of course, attorneys get involved and everything just usually blows up when that happens. So, so other than,
here in Australia. You don't have to go through the child support. You can come to an agreement with your partner or the parent, the other partner of the parent of the child, and you can come to a personal agreement. It doesn't have to go through child support. So a lot of it is done on a personal basis. But if they don't pay the child support, get involved, nothing happened was that a parent, you can earn $27,000 a year before you actually then start paying child support. Then it's worked on a formula of how much money you bring in, how much time you have with the child, and the income of the other person if they're working. Regardless if they're married again, the income in that house is not taken into consideration. So we see a lot of people who are denied the other parent access to the children just to increase that child support. So, and then if they don't pay the child support, they actually go into their bank accounts, their work, and take the money out of child support, and they have to leave them with about $375 minimum in their pay, and for someone to live on that. And I said to them, hang on a minute, they're entitled under the law to earn $27,000 a year. I said, but you're going in and down to $375. I said, that is wrong. I said, under $27,000, they should be left with at least $520 a week. So anyway, that's another thing that I've had raised and speaking up, because you're leaving people in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we only got you for a few more minutes, Miss Hanson, and I want to thank you so much for coming and doing this. But I got to ask, I mean, everything you've said has been spot on tonight. And I know, speaking up for family law and a lot of the things that you're speaking about, that cancel culture coming after you has just got to be brutal. What's that been like for you? Because, I mean, we live in that age right now that if you speak the truth, they're going to come after you.
They've tried. Hey, listen, they've been trying for the last 25, 26 years, and I'm still here, and my support is growing. My Facebook page, I've got 411,000 people on it, second highest of any politician in the country. The only one higher than me is the Prime Minister. So my engagements with the people is like, the people have respect for me. And what I hear all the time, look, you may not always agree with what I have to say. Fair enough. What politician do you? But they know that the thing is about me, people trust me. They know that I'm here for the country and for the people, and judge me on that. If the media want to give me a hard time, guess what? I tell them where to go. I said, don't come near me again. I don't need to be in your stories. I won't be treated with disdain and ridiculed. They tried to do that to me years ago because my background was I came from a small business, a fish and chip shop. Well, I can run rings around a lot of these politicians and knowing what to do because I've got the shared balance of power in the upper house. I have to have my head across all legislation so I know what I'm talking about. And I've got 25 years of knowledge and 26 of knowledge and experience that I've grown with the job. And a lot of these other politicians, the bells ring, they walk into the chamber, and ministers, and you want to clarify something or ask them, what are we voting on? They can't tell you. They don't know. Mm-hmm. So, as I say to people out there, I'm passionate. I will say what I think. That's what they don't like. Even if all this COVID, I've told them I'm not having the vaccination. No one in the wide world. And I'm going to Parliament. And I won't be putting on a bloody mask. I wore a burqa in the Parliament, but I won't wear a mask in the Parliament.
We saw that. I was telling her about that before we came on.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, this is me. It's about standing up for what you believe in. People have been suppressed too long by this woke culture, the cancel culture and all the rest of it. We are individuals. Think of the men and women, they're going to fight for your freedoms. They talk about because you're going to have the borders open, you can leave your home, it's Freedom Day. I'm saying, no, we have our freedoms. We've just allowed the politicians to lock us away and treat us the way that we do. Well, it's not going to happen to me. And someone reported me for not wearing a mask. I was outdoors the other day. Anyway, I said to my one of my advisors who's a lawyer, and I said, okay, what if I don't pay it? They said, well, you go before the courts. Okay, what if I don't pay it? Well, they're going to put you in prison. I said, that's okay. I've been there before. I know what to expect. So that's another story. I'm prepared to stand up for what I truly believe in. And this is what I'm trying to tell people out there. You have a right, but you abide by the law in general. Don't think that you don't have the right to have an opinion, have a say. Don't allow people to shut you down and, fight for your rights.
That's right. Pauline, tell everybody how they can keep up with you, and what are some of the ways that they can help you and amplify your voice and some of the things that you're doing over there.
Look, I'm up against the political party system, the major political parties, which is Liberal and Labor and the Nats. And don't worry, I am a threat to them and a real concern. But anyway, if they won't listen to the people and people get fed up with them, of course they're going to turn to me and give me votes. If I can get more people elected to the Senate after this next election, we're going to be a real powerhouse. And you don't use that power to be disruptive. You have to work with the government of the day by all means. And so what we do is, what I try to do is enhance the legislation. They've got it there. But I may say, listen, this would make it better. I don't believe in band-aiding all the time. Get to the crux of the matter and try and solve it, not band-aid all the time. Get the decisions out of the hands of bureaucrats. Have been at universities, never been grassroots people who are advising ministers and other ones who are too frightened to make a decision.
Lost you there for a second. I'm enjoying this.
I am too.
You got to think we're in the United States. We're connecting with her all the way over in Australia. But I mean, Jesus, Lord have mercy.
A fearless powerhouse. That's what we need. A fearless powerhouse. And just put up the hypocrisy. The feminists say, we need more women in power. We need more women in office. We need more women educated. So we have an educated woman in office, and she gets the attacks that she gets. This right here is the hypocrisy of feminism. But as she's fearless, I love it.
It's inspiring to hear that, because sometimes even with what we do, you get the attacks, and the more that you speak out, the more you try to help. That's what's going to happen. This is someone that's been doing it for close to 3 decades.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
how in the world she's done it? And guys, it was crazy, because the more I tried to educate myself a little bit on what's going on in Australia before I got her on here, it's almost identical. I mean, the politics, the media, the whole 9 yards, it is almost identical. But I think sometimes we get so caught up in our own little bubbles that we don't realize, we've got allies on the other side of the earth right now. This lady right here, we need to show our legislators her interview, because they lack the balls. I hate to say it any other way. They lack the balls. That's what they need. None of them have a spine. None of them do.
And for her to do this long, I think it speaks to the fact that she's very passionate about this area, and she's been through divorces. She's suffered from domestic violence. And when we look at some of our people who run for office, who've been through the family court system, that's turned around and used against them. And I think it keeps a lot of people over here from running for office, because I don't want that exploited. I love her personality was sort of a bring it on. She's fearless. She's been through the system, and her passion overshadows, I think, any attacks that she should get. So I really enjoyed that. She's an amazing woman.
It's very rare that when you're talking to anybody in politics that you get that what you see is what you get. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be anything flashy. I'm telling you what I believe, and this is it. That really makes me excited, guys. If you're over there in Australia, I see why they was telling us that we needed to talk to her. We hear so much about rallies here, and usually what we see, you show up, 10, 20 people's there. She did a rally for parental alienation not long ago, and I remember looking at the pictures. I was like, holy crap, you're telling me this was, for parental alienation and family law? It was more people than you could even see in the picture. It was huge. So, but that's why you've got a leader at the helm.
That's right.
And it starts with leadership. If our leaders would actually get there and run a campaign like you're seeing right here, we could get something done.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine if we saw an advertisement like that run here in the States? Oh my gosh. The engagement that it would get, but that's what we're wanting. But our politicians, we've talked to a lot of politicians, and they agree there needs to be reform, but I can't think of a single one who, like you said, had the balls to come out and say what needs to be said. There's justification. There's, well, there's talk, and yeah, I would support this bill, but I have yet to come across anybody over here with the gumption that she just showed.
Yeah, it gets a little depressing sometimes. We've been to tons of states this year, talked to hundreds of legislators, and everybody tells you what you want to hear. And then when you get away, it's like, where's the follow-up? It's the same thing. I mean, and you hear the critical race theory and a lot of the other stuff that's going on. We've got the same things that end up in the headlines. This is one of the most important issues out there. And the fact that the media is not representing it makes me sick to my stomach. The fact that our legislators won't stand up and say something about it. It's going to get to a time we're going to have to start calling them out.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think if we look at the political climate over in Australia, you guys, it's worse than it is here, but we're heading in that direction. And so we need to stand up and come out like they do before it gets to that point. Because I think once it got to that point, maybe our people might start, coming out. But you guys, to get to that point, I'd hate to be in Australia right now. I really would. Their individual liberties are all but gone.
Could you imagine? She's saying that if you just send a text to your ex saying, hey, I'd like to see the kids, that could be domestic violence? Serious?
Oh, you look at the definition of domestic violence. Somebody goes and said, well, he made me afraid. Or I have a woman who's claiming to be abused because he cut her off from the bank account because she was a spendthrift, right? She was spending money. They didn't have money to pay the bills. That, right, she's arguing was domestic violence, that she's abused and controlled. No, how about stop doing drugs that you're caught with, stop having an affair, but you have to bring out all this stuff to refute these arguments that shouldn't be there in the first place. But yeah, I mean, that's the bad thing about some of these allegations is all you have to do is say, I'm afraid for my personal safety, and boom, you're a victim of domestic violence, and all these groups start rallying behind you. It's too easy to make a false claim.
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. I mean, you're just giving people the ammo they need to keep this going. But there's a comment here, and I've never thought about this way. Maybe I think everything happens for a reason. We was meant to talk to Senator Hanson tonight. We got people that tell us that we need to do it on the state level. We hear people that say that we need to do it on the federal level. Chris Farrell said, should this childhood non-peaceful issue be brought up by the United Nations Council? What if we took a United Nations, like a worldwide approach to this? Because that's the thing. I mean, we've got so many people reaching out from Canada, Switzerland. I stand with John. I can't even begin to quote you all the countries that have reached out and said, hey, this is going on here. This story touched me. I think it could be done. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. We was lucky to be able to hook up and do that interview with her tonight, but
we were. But here's the thing is, if you and Robert were able to put together the I Stand With John documentary, imagine what you could do with a team that actually could do this full time. I mean, it's limitless. The documentary is literally put together by you and Robert. It's a wonderful documentary.
It was, and we was told it couldn't be done for under $200,000. I can tell you, we wasn't nowhere near, nowhere near that.
Well, when you're not out for profit, then you showed them what could be done for far, far less.
We're trying to get some new cameras and stuff right now because we're about to start working on the younger case. I think I was talking to you about this about a week ago, Melissa. That one's got.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of elements to that, and guys, when we speak out on these issues, that's going to be a time that everybody needs to be on their toes, because you're not just getting it from the family law angle. You're going to get it from the politics. You're going to get it LGBTQ. The whole 9 yards is going to be up in arms when this gets out there. But at the heart of the matter here, we got a 9-year-old child that's being brought back and forth, that's being used as this weapon. Should they be able to transgender? Should they not? This father is not being able to see his child. He has had a gag order put on him where he can't even speak. If we can't speak for that, we can't speak for anything. If the movement is scared to speak for that, I don't want to be in your movement.
Oh, and this is the thing, guys, this is a ripe issue. So my firm has a case like this right now, and you wouldn't believe some of these experts. Okay. And I've been talking about this for a long time, but you have these psychologists, they're just quacks is all they are. And they come through thinking, oh, I've got this degree and this is my opinion. But we need to fight against that. Because if we sit back and we don't fight against it, one day it's going to knock on your door, it's going to knock on your neighbor's door, it's going to knock on your cousin's door, but it's going to infiltrate and it's going to affect everybody. But if parents have no say, like Jeff has no say whether his son transitions into a little girl. But so this is a huge thing, because we have to, like Eric said, not only look at it from a family law angle, we need to look at it from an angle, a psychological angle, because I can tell you what, in my experience, therapists and psychologists are no different than lawyers. They're just vultures trying to make a dime, right? So if they think, oh, well, here's a new area over here, I'll just familiarize myself, maybe just a little bit, and then I'll be an expert and can testify on this. Because the truth be told, parents who are protecting their kids will stop at no cost. I mean, how much did Jeff spend trying to protect his son?
$1.1 million at this point, and now he's had to go pro se. I mean, he paid $50,000 just for the trial before the last one, and I watched as those attorneys were awful.
They were awful. I watched
they were awful. And I guess speaking about this, and be a little transparent, John Woodruff Jr. said, as far as the United States of America is concerned, get a hold of Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio. He will help stand with us. I know that Eric interviewed him once that I know of, but he needs to be the front man for equal rights. So I talked to him, John, and I'll be honest with you. He said that he thought the best interest of the child standard was flawless.
Yeah.
I don't know that he said flawless, but he said it was what we needed. I'd like to get more of a conversation, because I don't want people to judge just off of that. We have limited time with these guys, and the fact that we get time with them at all is amazing. But I don't agree with it.
I will say this, after the interview with Jim Jordan, I remember we were kind of disappointed, like, well, gosh, but I think it was more of an issue was I don't think he was really educated. And you guys would be surprised how many people we talk to that are completely clueless. I remember we talked to a lady running for Congress in Florida, and she goes, oh, no, the law is already a 50-50. And I had to kind of school her a little bit on that, but they don't know the law. And you would think, Jim Jordan, he's such a huge figure, and he is. And I don't dislike him. We had several conversations. We were in the green room with him. He's very, very nice guy. But I think some of this is we need to educate our lawmakers, because a lot of them aren't aware of the Title IV, E, B, D. They're not aware of all that stuff. So, but yeah, I was not totally impressed with that interview, but I do think that he's got potential. I think maybe if he has some more education in front of him.
If I can, at this, I'm going to spin it back a little bit on the movement right now. We have been educating the legislators. We have gotten a lot of cooperation and people wanting to do stuff, but they need to see you guys. You're the voters. You're the ones that make their voice matter. And if you don't stand up when we do this, then we're just conducting interviews. Then it is all just talk. But if we get in there and they want to cooperate and they start speaking out about it, if you show them your involvement and you get out there and you push it, I mean, we've had the best opportunities this past year, but we need our people to organize.
And what the great thing with social media is you can tag your lawmakers in some of this stuff. If you have a post that's showing corruption, tag them. And I know when I talk to legislators about it, they say, well, I hear you say this, I hear you say it all the time, but I'm not really getting calls from people in my district. You guys call. I can't tell you how many people come through the office and they're all ready to go and revved up and they're going to make change. But as soon as their case is over, it's kind of become apathetic. And I understand, look, you guys, I understand, trust me, you can't live this 24/7. It is the most stressful thing that I do. I know, same thing with Eric. It's extremely stressful, but you guys got to pick up, call or get in front of your lawmakers so they can see you, or at least help them at least.
That's where it counts, because I mean, we can sit here and talk about the stories, or we can try to, get some solutions going. This is not easy. I think I was talking to y'all not long ago, I'm a happily married man, besides the one little situation that I got for the most part, my life is pretty good, but I constantly got to go back to that time when it was not so good to relate to people and listen to these stories all day long. It gets tiresome. And I think the quicker that we can, like I said, get everybody on the same page, shouting it to the rooftops. This issue has never been red hot. If we can get it red hot, just hit it really hard, I think it would be over. They've got to know they're being watched and that we want some action done with it. I mean, there's been plenty of movements throughout history, but they come together and they organize. And Pauline was a great example of that tonight, seeing what she's done over there in Australia. And if there is any of the Australia audience that's watching tonight, you guys need to be behind her. I can only imagine what comes at her on a daily basis, and people that want to cancel her and shut her up, because that is the voice that you need. The one, she's not afraid to get heat. I love it.
She welcomes the heat. I love that. She's saying, bring it on. If I'm going to prison, well, I've been there before. I know what to expect. Because a lot of the control and a lot of the oppression, I think, comes from fear, is that they can instill fear. Just like in Jeff Younger's case, the judge says, don't talk about this, okay? There's a gag order. And Jeff is saying, absolutely not. I mean, I have to spread the word. Jeff was fearless in that. I'm not saying he didn't pay the price, because he has paid a price for that. But look at the awareness that he raised that wouldn't otherwise be out there, but for him telling the story and telling what's happened. I think that's one of the most horrific things in family court are these gag orders, these orders saying you shouldn't discuss on social media, because the fact is the reason for the problem are these bad laws, these bias laws. And I think that's one way that the courts keep their machines rolling, is by confidentiality.
I hate to say it too. You got big tech. You got big tech SU. Somebody had said only 22 watchers up there. You're on a page of almost 400,000 people, guys. So I'm not stupid. I mean, the censorship is just going to get worse. You're going to have these groups that are come at you, but that lets you know you're on the right track.
Absolutely.
That's all I can say about it.
And here's the thing is, after the first year came back from CPAC, Eric noticed a hit in the numbers just from going and talking to politicians and spreading the word. Took a hit. So yeah, big tech's going to be something that we just have to fight. And I hope, I don't have much faith, but I hope our lawmakers have the intestinal fortitude to go through with with big tech regulation or big tech reform on how they control everything. But again, I don't know if they have the intestinal fortitude. I
don't either. But Melissa, it was good to speak to you. I don't think you've been able to get on for a while. It seems like you've been pretty busy.
It's been a while. It's been a while. I know today I had to file a 17-page rebuttal to an attorney who misrepresented to the court this morning. So these things come up. I wasn't planned on doing it today, but man, you get that fire started, and 17 pages later, I think the truth came out. So, but yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah. And guys, I mean, it's still doing good. If you haven't seen I Stand with John, get out there and see it. It has been viewed almost 400,000 times. It's getting out there, and we have had so many people reaching out. It's sad to know or to read these messages of I'm the next John. That's starting to become a common thing, and that's how they refer to themselves. I'm the next John.
Those are some heroes. Those are some strong men to believe that and still keep pushing anyway. Those are some strong men.
So, yeah, I mean, look at John, even in the end of it, did he believe this could happen? John had strong premonitions this could happen, but nothing stopped him from going after those kids.
And, I had a conversation with John as well about certain things in his case. And John had a good grasp as to not only some of the actors in the case, but the risks that he was taking going forward. And so John Mast is a hero, and everybody should look up to him. His death, it would not be in vain. The awareness that has been raised because of his death is, I'm hoping it can save as many people as possible, but how incredibly tragic. But yeah, he's definitely not the only one.
We can't wait for the next John to organize, though, again, and get it out. It was like when John died, everybody was here. They was angry. They wanted to see something happen. We need you guys out there and pushing this. We really do. I believe John's story is a way that can really educate people as to what's going on, because it's got all the layers from CPS to the false allegations to the family court and even his tragic ending.
Perjury. Everything. He's got everything.
It does.
Talk about.
But guys, I guess that's going to be it. Pauline, thank you so much for coming on. If you get to see this a little bit later on, I mean, that was really cool.
That was great.
That was really cool. We probably need to start reaching out to some more people overseas and finding out maybe there is something we can do and kind of connect with that worldwide movement. I think that would be amazing.
Agreed.
So. All right. Thank you, Melissa.
Everybody, bye.